Jacqui Hurwitz. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Thank you for coming. Like 3rd of December, everybody's on holiday and you're still hustling. Thank you. Appreciate you.
In between beach time.
Very good. So you are the CEO. You're running your own business of Patina Design Studio.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to invite you and have a chat with you because you recently did a phenomenal job that's in my eyes. I'm not an architectural designer. Then I was like kind of even not impressed but shocked how good it was. And I was like, I need to get this girl and I need to ask a few questions because it was very good. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming in.
Of course. Happy to answer.
No, thank you. So let's go back because I had a few chat with you. You told me about you've been traveling the world. You're born in South Africa. You've done a lot of things before. I believe this journey developed you into this, in my eyes, amazing designer. So yeah, tell us a little bit more. Where you from? Where you born?
Thank you. So born in South Africa. Moved to Australia when I was 6 years old, went to school here, university here. And then while I was in university, I started working for a company doing hospitality design. So really cool bars and restaurants and, dessert shops. And In Sydney.
Very good.
In Sydney, we had a couple of projects in China as well, but most of the work was in Sydney. So I started there as the office manager part-time because I was still studying, and then as soon as I graduated, went straight into a junior design role. And that kind of launched me into this like whole world. I loved it. It was a very small team, so it meant that I got a lot of responsibility very early on. I wasn't just running around getting coffee for people, and
What were you then?
I just graduated, so
was that 24, 23?
22, 23 maybe.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, straight away.
So I was at that company for about 2 years, and then I moved to London.
Yeah.
And in London, I worked for a company doing mostly like high-end hotels. And then after a year or so, I moved to another company. I did a bit of freelance work here and there, and I was adamant that I want to do hospitality. I want to do that side of design.
Yeah.
Not interested in residential at all. Back then.
Interesting.
And then I got a 2-week contract at this amazing company in the UK, high-end residential, and fell in love with it from there on. And
you left?
No, I was there for, it was a 2-week contract.
Yes.
I came in there as like a mid-weight designer.
Yeah.
I was working on like this amazing, like incredible project in Mayfair in London, like right in the heart of London.
Yes.
Where again, I wouldn't have had, the responsibility that another, someone in my kind of skill level would have had. And they threw me into the deep end there. I was on site, at least twice a week, telling the builders what to do, making sure they were following the drawings, seeing if there was any information missing from the drawing package and kind of filling them in, and liaising that back to the office. I was, the point of call if someone needed something on site or they didn't understand something. It was amazing. It was that project really like changed my whole perspective on residential design. And I ended up
in London.
In London, and I ended up staying there for 3 years. I was only meant to do it for 2 weeks because at the time I was like, it's 2 weeks. I can deal with residential for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I ended up staying there for 3 years. And then my visa ended. So I came back to Australia. And
that's crazy. Okay, sorry if I interrupt. Let's unpack this because you're already, wow.
Yeah.
So, so they offer you a job in London for 2 weeks and you say, and you were designing hospitality, high-end hospitality.
Previously,
previously.
Previous
and
to that.
This is a new water that you're testing.
Yeah.
And you say, and they ask you, do you want to go for a couple of weeks? And you say, yes.
Yeah.
And you are in London. You don't know anyone. You don't know the city.
Yeah.
You don't know. And you stayed 3 years.
I'm very grateful that it ended up sponsoring me, so I could stay longer than my,
Yeah.
you get back then you get your 2-year visa and
Yeah.
then you have to come back. But
Yeah.
I was there for 4 years in total, so it was
Wow.
amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And what's the difference between the hospitality design compared to the residential? Have you seen? I mean, there are, I believe.
Oh, there's lots of differences.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot you have to focus on that's different. So for hospitality, you can be a bit more kind of adventurous and a bit more theatrical with how you design things and what finishes you can put in, what colors you can put in. In terms of the finishes, it has to be more durable though, and it has to have a higher slip rating, and it's a little bit more strict on that sense.
Right, because of legislation.
Because of legislation, there's more people and no one wants to get sued. Whereas if it's your house, you're a bit more careful about it as well.
Yes.
But it's a bit more theatrical. So if you think of an amazing restaurant that you've been to, you can keep going back 100 times and you love it and you love the atmosphere and all of that's built out. But if you are at home, you don't want all the drama around you all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a way of inserting a little bit of that, but in a way that you don't kind of get sick of it because you're passing it every day.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference between the two.
Wow. Okay. So you see, now that you mentioned this, you make me think like all the rest, the Maryville places that I often go, and I always like the design, and there must be some different legislations because when you have a lot of people working there, then you can get in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, and you stayed in 4 years in UK doing residential only?
Well, I started doing the hotels.
Yeah.
And then
as well.
So did a hotel in London and in Moscow.
In Moscow?
Yeah, worked on one in Moscow, and then got this contract job doing residential and have not looked back.
Got it. So the one they ask you for a job overseas in Moscow, so they just want your design, but someone else goes there and they create it.
Yeah, for that one, my boss was going back and forth.
Okay. So someone in their office still need to physically go there and check it out.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Great. So after that 4 years, what did you do? Then
I moved back here for 3 months and was not ready to be back in Sydney.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just came from this like exciting time in London. I wasn't really ready to leave London, if I'm being completely honest. And I came back to Sydney and I was just like, I wasn't feeling settled in Sydney. So I was here for 3 months and then I was like, oh, you can get the same visa in Canada. So I went to Toronto.
Right. So the main drive for that decision was because a professional, or you just wanted to travel and explore more?
I think a bit of everything. Right. A bit of everything. I mean, the design scene in London is incredible. And then in the Americas, which I was exposed to while working in London.
Yeah.
Because I did a couple of houses in Miami from London.
Yeah.
And then, easier visa to get to Canada than it is to the US long term. So went to Canada, just thought, I'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Toronto.
So, and then also found myself in this incredible design studio that's won multiple awards all over the world and, got a whole other side of the residential kind of spectrum from the Canadian American perspective.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the British influence. So I have both, and I've really honed in on how to bring both of those in. And I was there for...
Yes. Okay. Which lead me to the next question. So all of this culture that you've been experiencing from a design point of view, and that is like, I believe, the culture aspect.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, someone they ask you to design a hotel in Moscow.
Yes.
Which come from a different background from someone asked to design a house in London compared to someone in Miami, which is, I believe a lot of things affect the weather, the material. 100%. Is that right?
Yeah. And also when you're going between like metric and imperial system as well, it's like learning a different language. I had to keep switching between back and forth.
So say again, metric and imperial system.
Like millimeters and centimeters and meters inches and feet.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Different. Yeah, that's true. Interesting. And what would you say the differences that you kind of noticed? I know there is a world if we gone into the details, but let's say some basic stuff differences that you noticed between the design a house in London compared to design a house in Miami or wherever or Toronto or Sydney. Yes. What would you say the differences?
The main thing would actually probably be scale, just the size of buildings in say Miami and Toronto. It's a whole other level to what you get in London. Even in London, I worked on a 7-story house, but everything, there's not like a view to look at like you get here in Sydney. So everything has to be designed and everything has to be beautiful to look at. It's not just the backdrop to this, amazing seaside view or whatever it is you get in Sydney.
Right, everything inside the house.
Every single surface was detailed.
Really?
Yes.
That's because there is lack of space, or is because they don't have the view, they need to do something else?
I like to approach it that you don't have the view, and as a human being living inside a home, it's not, you're not just in a box.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the approach that Australian designers tend to take is it's a box with an outlook. And that's not what, you just don't get that to the same capacity, especially in central London, unless you're, on the odd bit of the hill where you can see the view and you can see the city.
Got it.
It's very, flat in comparison to Sydney.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. And is that correct to say that all of these experience that you gained overseas compared to the Australian design, architecture design, is because I believe depend on the person.
Yes.
But is that correct to say they a little bit more advanced or not really?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I think in Australia, everyone's a little bit too scared to put that personality. Maybe not. Maybe scared's the wrong word. But in overseas, I found that clients were a lot more eager to put their personality into the home and make it more about them. And here, everyone's like, "Oh, resale value," but they're still going to live in the house for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
And by the time it comes around, whoever buys the house, they're not going to love absolutely every single thing about your house that was tailored to you. So they're going to change it anyway.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's actually, I can say that because I saw your work. That was actually impressed because it was not easy at all because you didn't have a lot.
Tricky floor plan.
Yeah, it was not. You didn't have a lot of space to play with. And when I walked in, I was like, "What? How did you actually do that?" So, and I believe there is a bit of a process when you work with a client.
Yes.
Because, the client was telling me, she's asking me about what do I like, what do I want. So how do you work with someone? Is it based on your feelings? Is it because there is an art behind, I believe.
Absolutely.
And I believe what you do, and this is my opinion, you try to connect the person, lifestyle, personality to the house.
Absolutely.
So how do you? What's the process? How now? You don't need to tell me the step by step, but kind of how do you decide? Do you go on gut feeling? Do you have a process that you follow?
Well, I have a long chat with the client. We have a consultation that can be up to 2 hours, and I try and get into kind of quite deep early on as to what they like, what they don't like, what drives them, what's their routine. If it's a couple, who wakes up first in the morning? What annoys you about your partner? Do you, for example, do you walk in and you chip over the kids' shoes at the front door? What are the things about your day-to-day that annoy you that we can design out?
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise, there's no point. I mean, everyone has a good idea of what they like and what they don't like. And, most people can piece things together, but it's that really to get to the psychology of that's where you get the biggest dramatic shift in a design.
Yeah.
And that's where you add value.
Nice. I love that. And now this lead me to the next question, because I believe you got clients come to you and say, I like this, but at the same time I want to increase the value. So how do you find the right balance between matching what the client want from a personal point of view versus someone that want to increase the value, because everybody wants both?
Everyone wants both.
Of course. How do you work it out?
Well, you have to kind of see what you have to work out and get to the core of what the client's priorities are.
Yeah.
So you ask a lot of questions, you test them a little bit. You say, okay, if we have these, 5 elements and we want to spread our attention to all of them, but
Yeah.
we don't want to, put all our funds into one and then have mediocre for the rest of them. What is your priority? What are your issues with the building? And how do you want to live? And we work backwards from that. And then often, as you say, it is how do you increase the value or maintain the value of the property to make it appeal to other people in the future. You have to ask, how much longer in the future? What is your plan? Are you buying this as a young family and you need this to last through your, first couple of kids? What happens when they grow up? What happens, are your parents going to move in back in with you? Like what it is, the easiest is when our clients have a good idea of what their life kind of trajectory is looking at. And then we work backwards and then we can build the value in.
Got it. So the lifetime of the property, what are you planning to do?
And that can also mean we're going to live here for 3 years and then we're going to sell and move somewhere else. And then what we do is we make it comfortable for the clients at the moment for the next 3 years, but we build in what becomes more of a priority is the resale value. Yeah. Because it is a shorter term that they can get the maximum amount when they sell it in 3 years' time. And then when they move to the next one, they've got, a bigger pond to play in.
Got it. What would you say is the most common mistakes people makes? And these can be from property owners to a developer. Yeah. And how do you think they can avoid these mistakes?
Biggest mistakes people make is they create a checklist, which is the right first step. Yeah. They create a checklist of what they want, and then they just throw it in. And there's no thought, I'm being serious, there's no thought as to how they interact with each other, how you can kind of merge 2 ideas into one to kind of save space or manipulate how that space is used. Yeah, to maximize the benefit of maximize the space, maximize the space, and the if it's storage thereafter, or maybe they need to study spaces, but without there being space for an official study. Yeah, that sort of thing.
And what I was impressed the most, what you did with my clients, and then what I was like, the way you matched the colors.
Yes.
And how much is her personality. And I'm not I've just, as soon as I walked in, I felt it.
Yeah, I love that.
What I was impressed, I do, I'm a buyer's agent. I see property every day. That's all I do every day. And I've seen people, I went to a property of actually she lives not far from me. I'm not going to mention her name, but she's a type of an artist. But when I walked into the property, it was a little bit too much. Yeah. It was too much of pictures, Chanel, do you know? And I understand she's a very interesting woman actually. Yeah. But she's an artist. Yeah. But when I walked in, I was like, I can feel she's an artist, but it was a little bit too much. Yeah. What you did with the clients that you work with? You find the right balance between classy and not too much. Yeah. And that's what I liked.
Thank you. That's what we were going for.
Yeah, because even the small details, the way you paint the top of the kitchen, how do you find the right balance between, hey, this is moving to the line, it looks like a strip club, to the line which is okay, this feels like home.
Well, I hope it doesn't look like a strip club.
No, I've just seen property
where you say so the brief for that project in particular was we need to make the best use of that space. And it was a, you know, as you saw, it was a tiny, tiny floor plan.
Yes.
We had a tiny footprint to work with.
Yeah.
And I rearranged some of the elements so that it made more sense. We managed to get a much bigger wardrobe space, much more storage, another seating area, a space where the client could sit and look out at the view, or they can sit and watch TV, and without it feeling like, you know, you're sitting in a little cave. But at the same time, it was meant to feel quite cozy and warm.
Yeah.
And like a little sanctuary for her, not just a generic, this is, you know, a beach apartment.
Yeah.
Where everything's white on white on white. So a lot of that is to do with getting to know the client, understanding the brief, taking in other elements that are not kind of unspoken, but about how the client responds to some questions, and integrating all of that, and lots of layering. The layering is so important.
Okay, 2 questions on that.
Yeah.
So the first one is, when I walk into the apartment, felt bigger.
Yes.
How did you do that?
It seems counterintuitive, but we put wallpaper on the ceiling.
Really?
Yeah.
So
we put a textured wallpaper.
Yeah.
Which had like a very soft kind of thread through it.
Yeah.
In a linear fashion, like in a linear direction, and that works to push out the space.
What?
And you think if you put something...
That's a hack right there. Okay, sorry, go back. Can you say again?
It depends on the space, it depends on the scenario and the colors and what goes with it. But because of the linear direction of it, and it was a light, soft color. It wasn't like a harsh, you know, strong in-your-face color. It was very soft. It was very delicate. And we put it on the ceiling, and it kind of pushed the walls away and pushed the ceiling. Like, it felt like the ceiling was higher, because it also had very low ceilings.
Wow. Okay, that's a hack right there. Okay, now talking about more you talk, more question I have. So,
go for it.
What other hacks that they can do right now? I know I put you on the spot.
Yes.
I don't know, put a mirror there, or I don't know, open up. What's the little things that people can do right now?
Yeah.
They can actually make the place a little bit bigger or better. Even something small.
That is a very big question. They should hire me to come and help them.
That's, yeah.
It's hard to say without seeing the actual space, because every space will be different. It will have something different. I also did a development in Dover Heights where it was a duplex. So very narrow sites. And we wanted it to feel, the brief was to make it feel more like a home and less like a development. So still had to appeal to lots of people in the general public, but not that, you know, we just went, you know, to Bunnings and picked up what we found and threw that in, and it kind of looks okay, so that's what we're going with. They wanted it very curated and controlled, and how we did that. So very narrow site. It was, I think, 4.8 meters wide across. And to make that feel bigger, we put joinery along the side of one wall and then carved out spaces within that joinery. So if you've got a space that's just big and narrow, long and narrow, it feels long and narrow. If you then start carving out, you add something in, which is also counterintuitive, but you add something in and then carve out spaces within that, again, it pushes the walls away.
There you go. That's what you do, make it look bigger.
There you go. That's a secret.
That's what she say. There you go. Okay, that's impressive. Thank you. That's no, because I was like, because I walked into the property when we bought, and I walked into the property after it was nearly finished. It's not even finished. I was like, what?
It's not finished. We'll be finished in a few weeks.
Little hacks. Thank you for that. The next one is, you mentioned layering. So what do you mean by that? How do you break it down? Because what I liked about the property, you used colors that I personally would not like on a day-to-day basis. But I walked in, I was like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, how did you match it? How do you pick it? Is there like a process? How do you work it out?
Well, the client said she wanted a bit of shiny, a bit of like moody but cool, but still relates to the beach.
Yeah.
and still feels like homey and not like a dingy club somewhere, but
Yeah.
she wanted something, kind of metallic and special. She wanted to feel special. And it was a process of, finding a whole bunch of different materials, putting them together,
Yeah.
saying, this is no good. We're going to try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And feeding them all into each other. And then you get the right balance. And then then you start applying them everywhere. And then you just add another layer. So I don't know if you saw the artwork
I
that
did.
had been put in yet.
No.
No.
Not
Okay.
yet.
So that's another layer that's come in. And there's like a couple of things that you haven't seen yet, which are coming, which will be another layer. And they all kind of relate to each other. So she wanted a bit of red, but red in that space would be way too overpowering.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree.
way too overpowering.
That's
So,
what I often see in other properties, but maybe people don't know what they're doing.
yeah.
That I see this crazy mismatch of colors.
So
like
we
that.
did little piping details on some of the cushions and on the bed frame. And I don't want to go with everything's just now got this like red piping everywhere. So to relate that to something else, we did another color piping. And then we pulled in the colors from the beach and what you see outside, because she has this incredible view of Bondi Beach.
Yeah.
And then that's layered with this beautiful light detail on the ceiling. Then to bring in the dark, we changed the kitchen backsplash and brought it in there, and then backlit it. And then so she's so sweet. She messaged me and she's like, I love how you can see the reflection of the water off the backsplash, and it like pushes the light around, and little bits of metal. So we changed over the main lighting, because I don't know if you remember, it was that massive big ball and everyone was walking into it. And it just was a safety hazard, really. So we changed it out to this beautiful alabaster and bronze light that was more flat.
Yes, I remember that one. I was asking question of.
Yeah, and then we pulled in, from that, we introduced something bronze somewhere else. So the handle for the new joinery was like that bronze as well. And then it was all tied in together with the backsplash. So it all relates, but indirectly relates. And that's where you get the layers, and that's where you get the interest, and that's where you get the personality, without it being overbearing.
That's it. That's what I loved it. Because I often see, and I've seen few houses that you walk in, beautiful home, great view, but there is no, probably is the right term, layering. I see these beautiful car, white and these light blue and boom, red.
Yeah.
And like, what's going on here? But even someone is not an expert like I am, I feel like there is something going on here. Do you know what I mean? And the way you matched it, and the way you slowly layer it to that point is actually beautifully designed. Well done.
Thank you.
How do you develop the skills? I mean, of course you do full time. Like for someone, say, listening this and, they want to do something like that. Of course, they need to hire you, of course. But at the same time, they want to learn. Yeah. Of course, you need to get a professional. Yeah. At the same time, they want to learn themselves. Okay. How they can kind of develop that taste?
Be very, very picky about what you let influence you. Yeah, if you see something and you like that, you think that is beautiful, that's amazing, that's like good taste, figure out how did they, be curious about it. How did that achieve? What is it about it that I'm drawn to?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And then, a bachelor degree in interior architecture also helps.
Of course. Nice. It was very beautifully designed. Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'll try to get as much out of you as possible. Sorry.
That's a lot.
So I mentioned before the biggest mistakes people make. Anything else that we supposed to mention for developers or for home buyers? Anything else? Or what would you say the common mistakes that you often see when you walk into a property?
It's just the checklist. So this is where kind of can come in and help a buyer's agent
Yeah.
with their client to determine if this is the property that they want to buy or not.
Yeah.
I was in a property recently where they had put in a steam room in the rumpus room. So great. Sounds great. Sounds like a big, tick.
Yeah.
Like someone, oh, ooh, cool.
Yeah.
There's a steam room. That sounds amazing. Had a closer look, and the steam room was not finished. So it had a gyprock ceiling, which is a big no-no in a steam room. And it opened directly onto a timber floor. So great, you have a steam room, but you use it once, and then 2 weeks later, you start getting mold. Unless you're there, manually drying it out.
Yeah.
Which no one's ever going to do.
Yeah.
Sitting there wiping down the ceilings and putting fans in, because there wasn't an exhaust fan in there either. Something like that is they were better off you either do something right or don't bother doing it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to cause headaches further down the line. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So, more questions for you. I want to know a little bit more about your background. So, you said you moved to London, you did hotel design, after you did residential design.
Yeah, I've also done shops. I've also done offices.
Okay.
I've done a bit of everything. Yeah.
Okay. Do you still do it? Or you more focus on residential?
More focus on residential, but I still do a bit of the other ones as well. I've done a couple of offices recently as well. Yeah. One in Double Bay, one in Bondi Junction.
Maybe you can help us out here.
Of course.
Maybe we think to change the carpet and the walls anyway. I need to speak with the boss, no worries.
We'll chat. If you're working on a hospitality project or a development project for residential as well, and residential can be, multi-level, like multi-resi, or it can be, one big house.
Yeah.
You need to do your research, and you need to think of it like a product. So who's your market? What is the market looking for? So if that's a restaurant, ultimately, what do you want your guest experience to be in that restaurant? And you design around that. If it's a development, who is your target market?
Yeah.
How do they live? What is their profile?
Yeah.
And then you design around that.
I agree. I went to a Apollo restaurant.
Yes.
And they opened a new one in Redfern, and I was trying to book in. They all booked out, and I walked past, and I loved the design. It felt like Greek.
Yeah, and it has to have that allure that makes you feel like you want to be there. You want to see what's going on, like what is going on around that corner.
Yeah.
Like there's so many ways to do that. Whereas if it was just one big empty room with a whole bunch of chairs and tables, wouldn't have the same feeling.
It's true. Even a good marketing tool.
Yeah. It's a lot to do with marketing.
It's true. Like if you walk past certain building or certain nice, well-designed restaurant, you're like,
what is going on there?
Yeah. And you Google it. And you see the website. And you see the menu. You're like,
and then you're like, oh, I've got to try that. Yeah. The ideal project is where the client comes to me, we get the brief, or the client comes to you and we work together, we find the property, pull the brief together. And then once we have that brief, we pull the right team together and we walk through that process with the client right from the very beginning. Because we're in the same industry.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't, on surface level, you wouldn't think buyer's agent, interior architect, like related, but whatever. We're in the same sort of ecosystem.
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
The client comes to you, they have a brief. Then they come to me and they have a very similar brief. It's probably developed a little bit more since they spoke to you.
Yeah.
Well, now that they've seen a few things and walked through a few things, and that helps kind of people clarify what they want. But if we kind of start working at the same time together, we develop that brief for the client together.
Yeah.
And then it's a much stronger brief, which leads to a much stronger outcome.
That's very good. So you went to Toronto?
Yes.
And you worked there for a year?
Yeah.
And after you choose to come back to Sydney?
Yeah, Toronto wasn't for me. The design work was amazing, but Toronto wasn't my scene.
Old?
It's so cold. So cold. You don't understand. You go outside in the middle of winter and you breathe in and you can feel where your lungs are. Like, it is so cold.
Okay, I would love to go to Toronto. Okay, you came back to Sydney,
Came back to Sydney.
and what was your first reaction when you came back after all that experience that you collected from Europe and
I was,
Canada?
like I've been saying, I'm really careful about what I let influence me. And I was really conscious that I've just had all this incredible overseas experience, and I became very good at detailing, and I was like, I don't want to lose that. So if I go work for someone else and they're not up to scratch of what I was doing before, I'm going to lose that skill. So I need to keep going in my own way so that I don't lose that momentum, because there's so much that I learned that from overseas that would be so beneficial to properties in Sydney.
Got it. So when you came here, you were thinking, should I start my own business or should I work with someone? Did you go through that process?
I did. I was always going to start my own business.
You always wanted to do it.
It was always going to happen. I thought maybe I should just work for someone here locally until I feel like I'm ready. And then this opportunity came up with my friends, and
There you go.
here we are.
Let's get going.
Here we
Very
are.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. Where do you see now the landscapes in Australia, in Sydney, design-wise? Where is it going? What do you think so far?
I think there's a little bit of like European influence, which is a good thing. I do think it's a little bit too kind of Pinterest heavy in the way that some other designers tend to design, where and that I think that is also partly driven by clients as well.
Yeah.
Where it's, and I understand it as well. It's scary to say, here's, X amount of money, here's all our life savings, we want to change this. But design's a process, and when you start the process, no one knows what you're going to get at the end. Not even the designer knows what you're going to get in the end.
Yeah.
You need to go through that exploratory journey with your designer, and it will start to reveal what that end result is going to be ultimately.
It's an emotional journey.
It's an emotional, it's an emotional journey, and understandably, not everyone is, it freaks a lot of people out.
100%. It's true. Even like as a buyer's agent, when I buy an investment, don't care, numbers, results, great. When I buy an owner-occupier,
it's emotional.
There is a lot of emotions involved, and I believe it's exactly the same when you design something for someone who's planning to live in. Is that correct when I say?
Absolutely. And I think what a lot of developers miss here in Australia, in general, like it's a big generalization.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what they miss is that if you're a developer, you kind of have the opportunity to design someone's to build someone's dream outcome. And when they can't visualize it themselves, and once they see it, they'll pay way over what they thought they were going to pay for that end result.
Yeah.
Once they can see it. So I think developers have a big opportunity to create something really, really special that will in turn get them a higher price, which is ultimately what developers are there to do.
That's what they want,
And they just need to not play so safe and not go to, neutral, just because that's what it's worked, but the result can be so much better.
If you make it unique.
If you make it unique.
It's true. That's what makes, increasing scarcity. I agree. Okay. What are you working at the moment?
Got a couple of things on. I'm working on a home in North Bondi, something in Dover Heights. Something in Dover Heights, something in Rose Bay, Bellevue Hill. I'm about to finish 2 penthouses that they've been really interesting. They were purchased off market.
Yeah.
And the clients brought me in to adapt. Again, from a developer, clients brought me in to adapt what was going to be there by really well-established, really high, big names in the industry. designs, but it just didn't 100% hit the mark for my clients. So they brought me in to, one of them, we're kind of redoing all the joinery, all the finishes, the layout. And we're hopefully installing that in the next month or two.
Yeah.
And then the other one is going with what was more aligned with what was there, and then building the furniture package to suit the lifestyle of my client and to bring in the aesthetic that they want without doing like a whole drastic change of the materials. And because they were a lot further along the build process when they brought me in for that one, whereas the other one, it was the penthouse and they were still building the basement. So there's a lot more we could have changed then. So
a lot of work to do.
The earlier you bring someone on, the more impact, someone like me on, the more impact we can have
into the finished product.
In terms of the finished product, and making sure it's really tailored to what you want. And then also making sure that the builder and the developer who have promised that, yes, you can make these changes, actually follow through with that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Instagram, website.
Instagram and website. Website is www.patinadesignstudio.com. Instagram is patina.design.studio, and it's Patina. And
they can just text you and
reach out,
have a conversation, and see
we'll have a
you
chat.
can help them out.
We'll see if I can help in any way.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like it's something I can help with, I can, refer you on to, like, make some suggestions.
Yeah, that's another thing that I like. When I introduce you to the clients, you're like, oh, let's see if we get along. I'm like, we get along. you need to
well, that's the thing. I want to work with nice people.
No, and after I realized when you finish your work, I realized, okay, that's why I should say that. Because, no, what I love is you really care what you do, and you go deep into the details and to make sure that you end up with something good. So you even selective who you're working with to make sure the end result. So what I didn't see that you did, because you do this full time, is like because you take them on a journey.
It is a journey.
And that's what I like. Are you very upfront? Like I say, see if I can help you or not.
Yeah.
And see if you can match. I was like, oh, okay, that's great. It looked like worked very well. No, well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Last one, I promise. What's the future? What are you planning to do with your business? Are you planning to hire people? Are you planning to focus on one project? What's the plan?
Yes, if anyone's listening and they're very good at detailing and they know all the programs, are good at design, reach out for a conversation, because it's going to be a busy 2025.
Yeah, have no doubt about that. Hey, thank you so much for coming in. Great conversation.
Love it. Thank you so much.
This is general advice and does not take into consideration your objectives, situation, or needs. You should consider if this advice is suitable to you or your circumstances, and please read any applicable PDFs beforehand. This is a Henderson podcast production.